Dad's dream to talk about his favorite team with the son of digging the stats. Come and join us, nerding on the Dbacks.
Hello, welcome to Nerding on the Dbacks.
That's right, the best
And only,
father-son baseball show in America.
yep, only in America. Not in Europe. There's a bunch of those in Europe.
That's there's barely any baseball in Europe. That's funny.
Japan.
Yeah, there might be some in Japan for sure. I'm Dad.
And I'm Son.
Okay, there we go. That's good.
Yep.
Quick on the draw there. Like it.
We won't cut that. I thought you were going to say something else.
Nope. I do want to start off with, if you're watching this already, it means you're probably might be into our show. I don't know. We're not very good, but we want you to come along for the ride with us if you're entertained. And so please like, comment, subscribe, and of course, channel your inner kindergartner and
Share.
That's it. So you had some football this past weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. How's that ankle feeling?
Sprained.
Yeah, he got I guess I'd probably classify it as a high ankle sprain. And it's fairly bruised all around the ankle. I would say mostly like the front and sides, not so much the back of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't got too many muscles to bruise back there anyway, or to sprain, if you will.
Yep.
So yeah, hopefully you're ready for Thursday Night Lights. Regardless, we'll wrap it up pretty tight.
Yeah.
So, but as we always talk about, right? Don't play hurt.
Yep.
It's selfish.
First of all, it hurts, and
It hurts.
Yeah, it just hurts.
It hurts your team. It hurts you. Possibly worse. And so with that, let's talk Dbacks, huh?
Yep.
Oh. Or how about that big camping trip we had this weekend?
It wasn't really a trip.
We did a
We went through the Kitchener Forest, and then we went through the Doring backyard, and then we set our camp in the backyard of Backyardington.
That's right. And we sat and roasted hot dogs and marshmallows on an open fire and watched the Dbacks game.
Yep.
All of us. It was sweet. And then hung out in the tent for the night.
I was yelling, shut out, the whole time, but
they didn't make it.
They
but
did
they did. Just not that night. So let's talk about it. Past week of games, they went 4-2, and we're recording this here on the 15th. And so,
yeah, we are.
4-2. They took 2 out of 3. They went to Denver. They played at Coors, which is at a pretty high altitude. It's actually this kid here was born in Albuquerque, and we lived in Albuquerque for a little while and had quite the altitude effect. And so I don't know how much people can appreciate the altitude effect of going to Coors, but they've done studies on this, that your first game in Coors is your worst, and then every game, just collectively, every game that you play in Coors, you get progressively better. So game 2 is better than game 1, game 3 is better than game 2, and the reverse happens, which is what's crazy about the Rockies and why they're just they're such a bad team, but they're also just, it's so hard to win if you're them, because every time you go on the road, you leave that altitude, your first game, you're going to be terrible. And your next game, you're going to be a little better. And the next game after that, a little better. And the next game after that, a little better. And then you're going to have to go back to altitude. And your first game is going to be terrible. And then it's going to get a little better and a little better and a little better. And so it's just really hard. It's hard to go there and win. The Rockies have far and away the best home field advantage from a winning percentage over like the last 30 years of baseball, basically since they came into the league. And it's, I think I had commented before, they're probably going to win 50-ish games this season, and they'll probably only win 10 games on the road, and they'll win like half of their games at home, because they win games at home, but not all of them. the D-backs took 2 out of 3. They had a +1 run differential, and I want to tell you, that's what I meant to say with the altitude effect. When I played baseball in Albuquerque, I played there for years, right? And then we came to Phoenix, and I remember the first time that I played a game in my first game here in Phoenix, and we played some dude who was on the mound, and he threw me a 2-2 slider, and I hadn't seen a baseball move like that in 20 years. It threw me for such a loop. I was like, is that possible?
Yeah, it's like when you're first starting out catcher and they're actually throwing everything else but a fastball. You're like, what just happened?
Yeah.
Why did it move like that?
Yeah.
What just happened?
When I played in Albuquerque, because you don't get as much spin on the ball because of the altitude, or as much break, I should say. Guys are so focused on just throwing fastballs and gas. Like, guys just focus on throwing gas because that's your best pitch. When you can't throw a curveball that moves very much or a slider that moves very much, fastballs are your best bet, and just getting past guys on speed with just a little bit of movement. And so moving here took quite an adjustment period to being able to hit all of the breaking pitches after playing for years in Albuquerque. So I feel for those guys. It is nuts seeing the change, just the difference in how the ball moves from high altitude to low altitude. It makes it tough for everybody, but it makes it harder for the Rockies because they have to go back and forth between that constantly, where everybody else just has to go do it once a season or twice a season, and that's it. So best of luck to them. Anyway, Cardinals next. Cardinals, they had a good series against the Cardinals as well. The Cardinals are not a very good team. It's so weird to me because the Cardinals were, I think, the favorites when we did the Bet 365, when we did the over-under show.
Yeah, I think they were.
By over-under, they were the favorites. They were not projected to be the favorites by projection systems, but over-under had them as the favorites.
Yeah, they're not a good team. They got shut out.
We both took the under on them, and it showed. I mean, they're not bad. They're just not good. As Phoenix just said, they shut out the Cardinals in the last game to fulfill one of his predictions, which is awesome.
You'll see that next show.
Yeah, stay tuned for that recap. And then they are, or I should say, check back in for that recap in our next episode, like Phoenix said. And then the Cardinals are likely to finish in last place in the NL Central. They're already in last place at the NL Central right now, and I don't see that changing.
They are?
Yes.
Oh, the NL Central.
Yes, the NL Central. So anyway, we took 2 out of 3 there. The good guys took 2 out of 3. They had +4 runs against the Cardinals. So they just keep running the run differential up, which is quite a difference from last year. I think they finished the season at -15 for the run differential, which is like good for like a 79 win season.
Yeah.
And this season, and they overperformed that by like 5 games. And
I thought last game was crazy. Sorry to cut you off, but Contreras, one of the guys.
Contreras.
What you said,
yeah.
He hit like one straight down the third baseline into the corner. And in the 5th inning where we scored all the runs, Jock Peterson, he hit one down the first baseline into the corner, and you don't really see that often, do you?
When you can slap a line drive between the third baseman or the first baseman and their respective bases that they cover, that's it. That's an impressive hit. It feels good. And
you got to see it twice too. I just thought that was crazy.
Yeah, it is really cool. It's a really fun batted ball to watch.
I also thought that scary Jake McCarthy and Corbin Carroll hit.
Oh yeah, I know.
That was pretty scary.
Yeah. So let's talk about the starting pitching. They had a very good week. Very good week. Gallen just seems to have picked up where he left off last year with numbers that make him look like a genuine ace. And he's probably going to get down, if he keeps this up. I know I went on my Brandon Pfaadt rant last week, and well, that kind of came crumbling down this past week after I said all that. But Gallen just continues to just rock it. He put up a shutout this past week. He had they call it the two-step. He had two starts in the past week, and so his two-step, he gave up a total of 3 runs between the 2 games, one of them being a shutout, and he just consistently lets in just one or 2 runs a game, and it's really neat to watch him, because if you watched him pitch, you would think he doesn't look like he has overpowering stuff by any means. His stuff's not incredible, but you say maybe he's, looks like he's probably a 3 pitcher. Maybe in his best seasons, he can be a number 2. And then you look at his line for each game and the results at the end of this every season, and you're just like, God, this guy's absolutely insane. He is such a good pitcher. And it's just,
he's just a good overall pitcher.
Yeah. You would just never know it. I refer to it as he pitches like an old school, ace from the 90s. Guys who didn't have overpowering stuff. It's not to say, Greg Maddux threw like 92, 93 miles per hour, and Greg Maddux had good looking pitches, but Greg Maddux beat guys by basically just knowing how to pitch to what pitches and what locations to each hitter, and picking up on tendencies and getting them out. And he didn't strike out a ton of guys. He struck out enough. But he didn't walk many, neither does Gallen. He didn't give up many home runs, neither does Gallen. It's just I'm not saying by any means Greg Maddux is a inner circle Hall of Famer. Like, he is an elite of an elite crowd. But he kind of throws at like a poor man's Greg Maddux, which is a huge compliment to Zach Gallen. Gallen probably will never make the Hall of Fame. He started too late in his career. You got to be up pretty early. Typically, you may not know this, to be a Hall of Famer, you have to, typically most Hall of Famers are in Major League Baseball by the time they're 22 years old. It's something like 80% of players who make it to the majors by the time they're 20 make it into the Hall of Fame. It's kind of crazy. And so you kind of got to get started early to make it. And
it's not really your choice.
No, but if you're good enough, usually you get called up pretty early. So anyway, Merrill Kelly, this is all I have to say about Merrill Kelly. He's doing his Merrill Kelly thing.
What's the Merrill Kelly thing?
I want to talk about this at another time, a little how we get into it. But God, he is a really fun pitcher to watch. He works quickly. He doesn't strike out a lot of guys. He really doesn't strike out a lot of guys. Like, Gallen doesn't strike out a ton of guys, but he strikes out a fair amount. Kelly really does not. But guys never square anything up against him. It's so fun. And it's just constant balls in play. And then the occasional left-hander goes down on strikes trying to hit a changeup that just fades away down and away off the plate. And it's awesome. Ryan Nelson created some more separation between him and Tommy Henry. It seems fairly obvious. Henry's got one more start coming up because Jordan Montgomery is going to be pitching on Thursday, it sounds like. And so Tommy Henry, I believe, is pitching to Tuesday or Wednesday, and that'll be his last start for the season. Or for a while, and probably will go back to Reno when Montgomery comes up and be ready there. But Henry,
what about Rodriguez? What about him?
We'll talk about that later for sure. But Henry continues to look like a sixth starter. Ryan is pitching great without having given up a home run this past week. And Henry being the 6th starter, nothing wrong with that. He's this team's 7th starter. And if he's pitching like this as the 6th starter, he's perfectly passable. He likely, like I said, gets one more start. And then he'll be going down for a little while. And then, as I mentioned, Pfaadt had probably pitched the best of all of the pitchers through their first two times through the rotation. And that came regressing back hard versus the Cardinals. He had a rough start. He righted the ship after the first couple innings, but the damage was done. He went back to giving up homers with 2 balls going out of the park in that start against the Cardinals.
Out of the park?
Well, out of the... I don't know. They hit a homer. Out of play. I don't know. What do you want me to call it?
Home run?
Okay. They hit 2 home runs against him. I was just looking for something fun.
2 AMs, automatic runs.
Yeah.
ARs.
All right.
All right, let's move on.
All right. And Fott really needs to figure out this home run issue. He misses plenty of bats this season. He's not walking many, which is huge. And if he keeps just those 2 things up and his home run rate stays around 1.5, 1.6, he can be a good, solid 3 or 4 pitcher. But if he wants to take it up to that level 2, he's got a number 2 pitcher, because I don't think he can ever be a number 1. But if he can take it up to the number 2, he's got to get these home runs under control. He, both in the upper minors, all through AA, AAA, as well as in the majors, it has been what has kept him from consistent success, is he just gives up too many home runs. And so hopefully he can solve that problem, because if he can, he's going to be an absolute weapon for this team. And so in regards to the rotation, altogether, they're a fringe top 10 rotation so far, which is really impressive considering 2 of their top 4 guys haven't even pitched for them yet.
Who would you say their top 4 guys are?
Gallen, Kelly, Rodriguez, Montgomery. Not in that order per se. I'd probably go Gallen, Montgomery, Rodriguez, Kelly, though I can be convinced that goes either way. And then Fott is clearly their 5th best starter. Unfortunately, he's got to figure out the home run issue. He's got to figure that part out. If he does, he's going to be a monster. His walk rate, if he can keep it down around 1, like he is, even under 1.5, keep his strikeouts up around 9, and he's still going to be very good, even if he doesn't stop giving up home runs. But and if he can stop giving up home runs with that, it's going to be awesome. So the bullpen. One more thing. So once they replace Tommy Henry with Montgomery, I feel pretty confident that puts them in the top 5 rotations in MLB. Just that addition alone, especially with the Braves losing Strider, they were clearly in the top 5. I would argue one of the top 2 pitching staffs, but with Strider gone now, they drop down to like 15th. I mean, that's a huge loss for that team. That's the biggest. I would argue that's the biggest blow to any team's win total on the season of any of the injuries that have happened so far.
What would you say? What was their last record? Last season?
The Braves?
Yeah.
I want to say they had 104 wins, 103 wins, something like that.
So without Strider, what do you think it'll be like now? If they lost Strider, well, they are losing
for the
Strider
whole season.
For the whole season. But
Yeah, I would say. I mean, they're probably still. This is the crazy part. They're probably projected for. I think I projected them for 102 again, 103. I think they're probably still projectable for 98. They're still going to win the the AL East. I just don't think. I think with that injury, the Dodgers passed them for the best team in the National League. And I think you can make an argument. I would say they're still, it's not so much that they passed them. I would say the Braves fell back to now the Braves and Dodgers are on equal footing. Because the Braves were good. The Dodgers have the star power and all the names up and down that everybody loves, but the Braves just have more firepower in their lineup 1 through 9 than the Dodgers do, and they had a better rotation as well. At least it looked like it. But man, Strider going down and Max Fried on that team has looked absolutely awful. I think he's got an ERA around like 15 or something like that. I mean, just absolutely horrible in the early going, and not sure why. He always starts slow, so it's probably not a big deal, but this is a little slower than normal. So bullpen, it's been every bit as good as the starters. I know. It's like I said last week, every fan base thinks their bullpen, their team's relief pitching core is trash. Absolute trash. Every fan base thinks their team's relievers are terrible. I'm here to tell you, I want to talk you down off this ledge because they literally rank right around 10th in just about every statistical category for bullpens in Major League Baseball, which is solid. Like, that's right about where the rotation has been. The rotation, compared to every other rotation in baseball, has been just as good, no better, no worse than the bullpen has for the Diamondbacks versus every other bullpen in baseball. So they've got a couple of and the tough part is, with the exception of a couple of really bright spots in Thompson and Nelson and Jarvis. Oh, got to throw some roses at Jarvis. That kid came in this year. I don't know if he ever pitched. I don't remember if he ever pitched for the Diamondbacks last year, but he has come in today. If you recall, he was the guy I predicted would get
that he'd get the start, right?
Yeah, the opening spring training opening day starter, and he wasn't. And that's all right, because he's doing great out of that bullpen. I really think if his stuff plays up, he's throwing harder than he ever has before, which is awesome. He's got he's got 5 pitches, StatCast says. I really think it's more like 3, and he throws one of them very, very occasionally. But even so, coming out of the bullpen, being a 3-pitch guy who can throw pretty hard, you could be pretty dominant, and he could be working his way into some higher leverage spots here for the team if he keeps this up. But the bullpen's been every good. I read that. I kind of look at that as being a testament to Torey Lovullo's feel for deploying his bullpen. The bullpen rotation have performed really similarly, like I mentioned, and that means, if they're almost at the same level respective to each other in the league, that means Torey's going out and pulling his starters at exactly the same right time, so that his bullpen's effectiveness and his starters' effectiveness are both balancing each other out almost perfectly. He's not leaving his starters in too long, that they're giving up extra runs late. He's not taking them out too early, that he's wearing his bullpen down. He's done a really nice job of finding that perfect balance. And
how many teams do you think do that? Or is it only Torey?
No, I mean, there's other teams. I would say most teams take their starters out too early. That's not all teams. Some teams have really dominant bullpens, so you want to take your starter out early. Look at a team like the Minnesota Twins. I know I'll go back to this, but there's a reason here, and that is the Minnesota Twins bullpen has been far and away the best bullpen in baseball this season. And so part of it, and the thing is they're actually leaving their starters in fairly long. I think they have the most innings per start out of their starters so far this season as well. So they're not even giving their bullpen that many innings. They could probably actually give their bullpen more innings and balance that out better. Where Torey's doing a really good job. That said, you don't want to start the season by playing your bullpen too much, because those relief pitchers will wear out, having to go pitch 3-4 times a week after week. It gets exhausting out there, especially doing what they call dry humping, where you get it's where you get up to throw in the bullpen and warm up like you're going to come into a game, and then they tell you, oh yeah, we don't need you anymore, and you have to sit back down. And if you have to do that 4 or 5 times a week, not that specifically, but if you even just get called to go in once or twice a week and you don't end up going in, that's a lot of extra wear and tear on your arm throughout the season. So Torey's doing a great job early on with that. I love Jarvis. On top of everybody doing fairly well, the issue with they've got a couple of guys down in AAA who are crushing it right now. One is Justin Martinez. He's a rare relief pitching prospect. And what I mean by rare relief pitching prospect is since rookie league, basically, he got converted to relief back after the 2020 season. So he's been pitching in relief the last 3 seasons, I believe, and now the 4th season. And that's really kind of rare for most relief pitchers. Most relief pitchers in Major League Baseball were starters pretty much all through the minors. And then they didn't find out until they got to AAA or the majors that they couldn't really cut it anymore. And so that's when they go to being a relief pitcher. And so that he's a relief pitcher, and he's been a relief pitcher basically since he was 20 years old, is kind of unusual. And he's absolutely crushing it, striking out loads of guys, not walking anybody. Literally, I don't think he has a walk yet this season. Hasn't, and I think he's given up 1 home run or so. No, he hasn't given up any home runs. He hasn't given up any runs. So yeah, he's pitching amazing. Small sample size. He's only got 6 2/3 innings. And he's already on the 40 man. So no roster move needs to be made in order to call him up at some point.
What does being on the 40 man mean? Like, does he get like special treatment or something?
Yeah. So Major League Baseball teams are allowed to have 40 players that they basically keep on the roster that are protected from other teams taking them ever. And so as long as you're on the 40-man roster, other teams can't take you, and you can be brought up to the majors without having to take somebody else off of the 40-man. So usually if you're on the 40-man, even if you've never been in the majors before, but if you've been added to the 40-man, you're just an injury away from playing at the game's highest level, because you can just be brought up like that. That's all that matters. Where the next guy who I'm going to talk about, Dakota Chalmers, who is also crushing it in AAA. It's, again, super small sample size, but he's been nearly as good as Justin Martinez. He's a former top, I want to say he peaked out around like the fourth highest prospect back in like 2018, 2019, sometime around there, with the Twins, ironically. And he's 27 years old now. I always liked him. He has really good stuff. He's just never really been able to figure out how to put it all together, and he got injured and all of that. I mean, story of I don't know if I've heard me say this before, but pitchers break. And so there are so many relief pitchers right now between like the ages of 27, 28 and like 31, 32 years old, which is kind of crazy, that finally get it all put together because they realize they need help, and they finally turn to all of the optimization tools that are out there, the modern tech and analyzation teams, and what they can do to help them become wicked good relievers, even if it's just great pitchers, even if it's just for 3-4 seasons in the majors. Go get your bag, go get your few $1 million. If you can make it happen, get taken care of for the rest of your life, that you don't really have to go work a job after baseball if you don't want to. And so I love where he's at. I hope this is real. I'd love to see him up here. Unfortunately, he's not on the 40-man. So what that means is if they wanted to add him to the active roster, they would have to either DFA a player that is currently on their 40-man, or they would have to move a player to the 60-day IL. Because if you're on the 60-day IL, you're technically on the 40-man roster, but you don't take up a spot on the 40-man roster. It's a weird little loophole, but it's just so that you can replace that injured person with somebody else. They don't really have anybody though that's likely to be out so long. They've already got Dre Jameson on the 60-day IL. He's technically on the 40-man roster, but he's not because he's on the 60-day IL. So all of that said, the D-backs have an excess of outfielders on their 40-man roster, and they could probably DFA the one that they deem least likely to be an impact contributor at any point in the future. I'm not going to name any names, but there's one obvious candidate that they could cut, and nobody's ever going to miss them at this point. He's gotten enough opportunities and hasn't been able to stick. And it's time to, with all of the depth that they have in the outfield, it's time to, they don't need to move on from him, but if it comes a time that they need to make a space on the 40-man to add another pitcher, which they're probably going to have to do at some point this season, they can do it. For the D-backs only have 21 pitchers on their 40-man roster. The vast majority of teams have at least 22. Some have 23 and 24 got pitchers on their 40-man roster, because you feel like a broken record saying this.
Pitchers get hurt.
Yeah, pitchers break. And
so do you think they should get another pitcher, or
they don't need to right now. They've got two guys in the minors who are looking really, really, really good early on. One who's a fairly highly valued prospect right now, one who is a former high valued prospect. And so I think they don't need to make any moves right now, but it's going to happen at some point. I've heard the chatter that a lot of people want to see Justin Martinez up and send down. There doesn't seem to be a lot of agreement out there about who to send down. But the thing is none of the guys are really playing so poorly in the bullpen. I mean, they're the 10th best bullpen, roughly-ish, the 10th-ish best bullpen, a fringe top 10 bullpen in Major League Baseball. So they don't really have a weak point per se. They don't have, not all their guys are obviously pitching fantastic, but there's things you can look at in the metrics for every single one of the relievers and have optimism about what kind of performance they're going to turn in at by the end of the season. And so my take on it is it's going to sort itself out. The D-backs are one of only 6 teams so far in the league that have not placed a pitcher on the injured list since opening day. Wow. One of only 6 teams. There's on average more than 2 pitchers a day across the league getting added to the injured list. And so the D-backs, I mean, the odds of them even making it through the rest of this week, I don't wish any injury on anybody, but the odds of them all even making it through this week is remote. It's not good. It's a coin flip. And so one of these guys is going to go down and Justin Martinez is going to be up in his place. It's just the way it's going to go. And then, and the thing is, probably somebody else goes down the week after that because pitchers break. And,
you really are a broken record.
Yep. And so there's a good chance that, we got another DFA coming here sometime in the near future. Wouldn't be surprised if it's before the end of April. And both Chalmers and Martinez are pitching out of the bullpen for the D-backs. So that said, if there was some guys to go down, McGuff and Frias seem like the most deserving guys. But again, they've pitched well enough that they don't deserve to be sent down necessarily. And like I said, my educated guess is the problem. It's a good problem to have a bullpen where everybody's pitching well enough that none of them deserve to be sent down to the minors. That's something that almost no bullpen in baseball can say. Like the Guardians and the Twins and a handful of other teams are in a state where their bullpen doesn't have somebody who's just is a break glass in case of emergency kind of relief pitcher. Yeah. So I on the pitching side of the game, there are very few teams that are fringe top 10 starters and relievers. They're doing really great. I'm really impressed with their pitching altogether. Hazen's done a really great job. And Hazen's two biggest pickups of the offseason for the pitching staff haven't even thrown a pitch yet for them. And so it's only going to get better as long as guys don't get hurt, like not too many guys get hurt. And it looks like they've got a bullpen that runs 10, maybe 11 guys deep in good enough major league caliber arms, which is awesome. Absolutely awesome. What a great place to be in. So let's talk defense, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta love it.
All right. So first one.
Defense wins championships, as that one coach always says.
Yeah. I don't think that applies so much in baseball. Unfortunately. I mean, unless you consider pitching defense, which it sort of is, then yeah, to be honest, homers win championships. I know nobody likes hearing it, but
Singles wins championships.
The team that out homers their opponents in the playoffs, both in individual games as well as in a complete series, wins the game by like 80% of the time and wins the series like 90% of the time. Home runs wins championships. Unfortunately, it's just the way it goes. Now, if you have a pitching staff that can suppress home runs, you might win some championships. So it works both ways. You got to hit home runs and you got to prevent home runs, which is pretty much all on the pitchers from the prevention side of things. So on defense, the defense has been really good, minus one glaring issue. But let's talk about it. Lourdes Gurriel, your boy.
The hair.
When the D-backs got him, his career defensive numbers were somewhere between average and below average. And since the day he put on a D-backs uniform, he's been a good defender. It's kind of fun watching him play out there. He seems a little unsure of himself all the time. He doesn't look real smooth, but he's kind of fast, but he's big, and it's kind of weird watching him run out there. Like he's kind of quick, and he's not Aaron Judge big, but he looks like he barely understands what he's doing when he's playing in the outfield, but he makes almost every single play. It's awesome. I love watching him, and he's the only regular outfielder who has a good throwing arm. Everybody else in that outfield, I mean, Jake McCarthy, oh, good night. That arm is Jake McCarthy. I literally believe that I can throw a baseball harder than Jake McCarthy can.
Do you think Corbin Carroll has a better arm than him, or
than McCarthy?
Yeah.
Yes, McCarthy has by far the weakest arm on the team in the outfield, probably in the whole team.
How fast do you think he can throw?
He looks like he probably tops out somewhere around 60, 65 miles per hour.
So how
maybe
fast
70 if he gets a good crow hop.
How fast do you think you can throw?
I know I top out in the low 70s with a crow hop. And so I'm saying I don't throw that hard. But I'm pretty sure I throw harder than Jake McCarthy. It's kind of nuts.
You're a center fielder, so
yeah. I throw hard Hey, I'll be back out there one day. I hope my knee lets me get back out in center field someday. I might be stuck in one of the corners. I'm not gonna lie. But
hopefully your faster than you are. Maybe it'll help.
Maybe. The knee's been bugging me for a lot of years, ever since I had a collision in the outfield with another player that caused my knee to swell up pretty big, and sat me down for a couple of weeks. Nothing like too terrible on imaging at the time, but maybe you might be right. I may run faster after finally getting this taken care of. It's possible. It's not real possible, but it's possible.
All right, Dbacks.
Yeah, Dbacks. So I love watching Lourdes play out there. It's super fun. McCarthy is kind of they're both in an adventure, but in different ways. McCarthy kind of reminds me of, you don't know these guys, but Juan Pierre. I should have started that off with. He reminds me of Ben Revere, and before Ben Revere, Juan Pierre. And McCarthy's kind of like them in that pretty fast, maybe really, really fast. Takes pretty decent routes to the ball, but holy cow, they just have to. They have to throw to their cutoff man every time. There's no throws to bases for those guys. They just can't get it there. And so the team as a whole is actually like a plus 2, plus 3, plus 4, somewhere around there on outs above average and defensive runs saved, except for one player. Do you know who that one player is?
Blaze Alexander?
Yes, it's Blaze Alexander. And so, but here's the thing. Blaze, I don't quite understand how he's being used. He has the tools for shortstop. And at this point, we need to find out if experience is all he needs to kind of get over the yips that he's dealing with at shortstop. But Torian his team have decided to be starting Jace Peterson and Kevin Newman at shortstop in like 4 of the last 8 games, basically half of the time. Blaze is getting half the starts, and then Newman and Peterson are getting the other half of the starts. And here's the thing: Blaze may never be a good major league shortstop. He's got the tools, but that doesn't mean that he's going to be able to do it. Shortstop is a really difficult position. But we're not going to learn if he can play shortstop. He's not going to learn if he can play shortstop in 5 games at the position. I don't understand it. He needs the aspects of improving at shortstop for him. It can't really be replicated in a practice setting. It's just, he needs to figure out how to slow the game down and just like we talked about, right? Last week or on our last show, he needs to get some confidence out there so that he's not going at every single ball like he's not trying to mess it up, but rather go after every single ball like he's trying to make the play.
Yeah, because he's too worried about like him messing something up and then just getting
messing it up.
Yeah, messing it up and getting put down into AAA.
Yeah, he's not going to get put down. He's far too good of a hitter. But he may. I want his bat in the lineup, and he makes the most sense for this team at shortstop over until Perdomo or Lawler are healthy and back for this team. And so I hope he gets a good string of shortstop starts here, so that we can really learn, can he handle the position or not. I will say he definitely he's probably not going to be a long-term shortstop by all accounts. Obviously, Perdomo is a better shortstop than him, but Blaze's bat is way better than Perdomo's bat is. Perdomo's bat is barely playable, whereas Blaze, if he can be a Derek Jeter-like player, meaning if he can have a good bat, like a really good bat, and can be a slightly below average to solidly below average defensive shortstop, he can be fantastic for like 4 or 5 seasons at shortstop. And they don't even need him there because by all accounts, Lawler is going to be better. Blaze, though, for the time being, is the team's best answer at shortstop. And he looks like he's probably going to be the third baseman for 2025 and for the next 4 or 5, 6 seasons after Suarez becomes a free agent, because he looks like he's going to be a great fit over there. But let him do shortstop in the meantime. Please, Tori. Please. I know you're listening to this.
Okay. We hope.
And then let's talk about the offense. We talked about it last week. I'm going to talk about it again. They're scoring in the first inning, right? It's so much fun. They've scored multiple runs now in 8 out of their 16 games in the first inning. That's incredible. They've scored at least 1 run in 10 out of 16 games. And this is the thing. I don't think a lot of people attribute this, but I think it's worth pointing out. So much of the credit for them jumping on the starting pitcher the way that they have in almost every single game, so much of the credit goes to the offensive coordinator and their analytics team. I don't even know who their offensive coordinator is, and their analytics team definitely is just a bunch of people breaking down charts and on computers and giving it to the offensive coordinator to give to the hitting coach to make a plan out of it. And so their scouts, by scouts I mean the guys who sit on the computers, they're so incredible. They've been so incredible at analyzing their starting pitcher that they're facing each game, that they're coming out and attacking, putting together a game plan that fits the skill sets of the hitters. And they really deserve to be commended.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, they're not as prepared for bullpens. For the opposing team's bullpen, they can't put together the runs against the bullpens that they're facing at all. But I'd rather we be able to come out and punch the other team in the face by getting after their starting pitcher right away, and then play it from there.
Just a little sucker punch right there.
But also, the players deserve credit too. They have to be willing to listen to the offensive coordination unit. There are still, and then they have to execute. There's still, though it's less common, there's still players. You hear stories about guys who aren't coachable in the league when it comes to adapting to information from the team's staffs. And so I love that these guys are obviously taking the game plans to heart and executing on it. And that's freaking fun to watch. That makes for some freaking fun fandom. And so Hayes and his team deserves credit as well for bringing all the right guys in all through the organization, players, coaches, coordinators, analysts, all of it. Because the guys that they brought up from the minors, they're obviously very coachable. They've done something right from the time they've been in the minors. And, Eno Saris was actually talking about this a few weeks ago on Rates and Barrels, how the Dbacks, particularly on offense, and this is before they had their Cambrian explosion in the early going against all these starting pitchers, that the Dbacks have what is widely considered a top 5 offensive development program in place in their organization. And so that's really cool. And it shows with what they're doing right now. I love it. And so they're a fringe top 10 offense in the league. It's kind of crazy though. They have the 4th best runs scored per game in baseball right now. But their work plus is 18th. And so you could see where it's kind of easy to see where this all breaks down, because even though they're like the 18th best hitters, but they're scoring the 4th most runs. They're hitting, when you're talking work plus, your hitting is regressed for quality of opponent, pitchers, defense, and stadiums. And once you roll all in that and consider half their games have been played against the Rockies.
That 116.
Yeah, it makes a lot more sense why they've scored so many runs, despite the normalization stats saying they're more of a league average offense. And so base runs is another way of looking at team run scoring. And it's a little more holistic. It brings base running into the equation, reaching on air, hit by pitches, basically every way of getting on base. And it has them right around 10th in as far as offense is concerned. So one thing I found was they have the lowest line drive rate, the lowest launch angle rate, the lowest launch angle in degrees on average.
So like
in
where
Major
the
League
ball
Baseball,
is-
how high they hit the ball.
Yeah,
So they're hitting.
That's a fly. That's like a pop up.
That's straight up on home plate. 0 is right
Straight back to the
straight.
pitcher?
Yep, straight right back at the pitcher. Essentially, right at his bread basket, we'll call it, his precious gems, his twig and berries. And so so the D-backs are averaging more than 1 degree less than the 29th highest team. So they are hitting a lot of balls on the ground. And so this also goes into the base runs. They're putting just a ton of pressure on defenses to make plays, and it's getting them on base. And so I think that's probably the most accurate portrayal. They're right around the 10th best offense. They're not really a fast team, but they are a really good and aggressive base running team. I've noticed that they go first to third and second to home a lot. They get thrown out once in a while, but as really good baseball analysts will tell you, like baseball insiders, if you're not getting thrown out once in a while, it means you're not being aggressive enough with your base running. You're leaving runs on the bases by not getting thrown out once in a while. And so they're doing a really great job on that front. And the only tweaks to the offense would be free Jock against lefties. Please just put him in the lineup against some left-handed starters, or at least let him hit against some lefties when the relievers are coming in, at least while Thomas is out. Once Thomas comes back, it's understandable that he gets less at bats against lefties, but you can give him basically at bats against lefties from Jake McCarthy is essentially the one who loses out. Put Grichuk in right field, put Blaze at shortstop, and keep Jock at DH. And you can get up some just to see what he does. I don't know. He's crushing. He's got some really good at bats being put together right now, and I'd like to see what he can do against lefties. And then also let Blaze start every day. I know I just talked about this, but keep Blaze in the lineup at shortstop every day.
Shortstop.
That's right. I'm not even some Blaze super fan. I was calling for all the fans who were like, this kid's incredible during spring training. I'm like, it's spring training. Let's not get carried away here. There are guys who have an incredible month in spring training who are selling insurance 3 years later. Like, let's not get too carried away here. And but now that it's the regular season, we have some StatCast data on how well he is hitting the ball and the kind of at bats he is taking. I'm swayed that data speaks to me in a way narratives, emotions, and hot streaks during spring training can't.
Your future you is just like to the old one.
right. So I can be swayed on it, and I want to see him get more reps at shortstop. Through 16 games, it all adds up to an 8-8 record. They're tied for second place in the NL West with the Padres, still, who are 9-9, and their base runs record is it's two better. No, their base runs record is 1 game better than their actual record, and their Pythag record is 2 games better than the actual record. So the way that it's kind of funny because they got lucky last year, and so far they've been a little unlucky in the results of their games. And so anything else that you want to discuss on that front, on the state of the team?
No, I think they're doing great right now, and I love that Lourdes' big home run every game. That was fun.
He
Not anymore.
he doesn't have
but-
big home runs every game, but man, he does a really good job of picking his spots where he does go yard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. It is exciting. And so there's a couple of little things I wanted to, just a couple more news and notes. They signed Colton Wong to a minor league deal. He's a 33-year-old who played for the Cardinals, Brewers, Mariners, and Dodgers. He won a couple of gold gloves at second base, and he even got down ballot MVP votes back in 2019. I bring all that up because he's followed a career arc of the good but not great second baseman that has just happened over and over and over and over again over the last 30 years. It's incredible how many second basemen just fall off a cliff right around age 32. I know we've talked about this in the past, off the show, off camera, if you will, away from the mic, but it's kind of spooky how consistent this story is. The vast majority of all good to very good second basemen over the last 30 years, literally, they just fall apart around age 32. It seems it doesn't happen to the guys who are on the Hall of Fame path or close to it. And unless the second baseman moves off the position in the early 30s, their careers just nosedive. I've heard some analysts or like baseball guys kind of break this down and talk about how they believe the size of second basemen causes their bodies to break down at a younger age than most. Second base is typically the smallest, like height and weight, usually is the smallest guys on the team. It plays second. Yep. Short guys, and we'll say lean guys are usually second basemen. Second basemen are typically failed shortstops that don't have the arm to stick at shortstop, and so they move to second base. And if they don't have the arm, it's usually because they're smaller than most major league shortstops. And the theory goes that if you have the arm but not the quickness for shortstop, you move to third base instead. And so those guys are usually bigger. Those shortstops that are bigger, but can't play shortstop, they usually get moved to third, which is why this doesn't happen to third baseman. Probably doesn't happen to it doesn't really happen to shortstops either. It's just second baseman. And so the larger guys stick at shortstop and third base. They don't break down at the same alarming rate as second basemen do. And size seems to be kind of the one thing that most baseball peeps point to as being the reason why. So kind of interesting. I hope it doesn't happen. I'm a little concerned about the Ketel Marte cliff that it might possibly be looming because he's 30 years old. I hope it doesn't happen to him. If he keeps himself in great shape
right now.
Yeah, he's great. He's absolutely insane. And that's where the falling off the cliff part is scary because these guys are just usually rocking into like their age 30, 31, and even sometimes through their age 32 season. And then it's just, boom, it's just straight down. And so, anyway, Colton Wong seems like a depth addition to their minor league teams, to their minor league system. He probably never puts on a D-backs uniform. And Corbin Martin.
Oh.
Yeah. He was DFA'd last week. He ended up being claimed by the Brewers. And I wanted to ask, Phoenix, what are your best memories of the Corbin Martin era?
That explains a lot.
Yep. It was, he's been on the team for quite a while, but in the organization, but he barely ever pitched and he wasn't really ever that good. I hope he gets healthy. He's going to get a shot. The Brewers immediately put him into the bullpen for their major league team, and he's going to get a good chance. I actually think the Brewers just felt like they needed to replace fill their Corbin quota after trading Corbin Burns away in the offseason. They needed another Corbin to add to their pitching staff. And then you asked about Eduardo Rodriguez earlier.
Yep, I did.
Unfortunately, he had a setback in his rehab, and it's indefinite. They put on pause his throwing program, and we don't really know when he's going to be back at this point. I am kind of trying to be realistic because he hasn't even pitched. He basically hasn't pitched much at all for spring training, even, and so he's gonna need a few, probably 3, maybe 4, even 5 minor league rehab starts. He's probably not coming back till June. He hasn't even started resuming throwing yet, and he may not resume throwing until May. And I just, that gives Ryan Nelson, who I mentioned previously, is pitching great so far this season. Maybe not great, but really good. Like, absolutely, as long as Montgomery, Gallen, Fott, and Kelly are all healthy and in the rotation, Ryan Nelson is your 5 starter. He's the best 5 starter in Major League Baseball. Arguably the best number 5 starter in Major League Baseball, and that's terrific. Like,
so if Rodriguez came back, what do you think his pitcher position would be? Would he replace Tommy Henry?
No. Henry is going to get replaced by Montgomery here this week. Ryan Nelson will still be. He'll replace Ryan Nelson. Now, I mean, I hate saying this because I don't wish it upon anyone, but here's the thing. Even with all of these guys being low velocity pitchers for the most part, except for Ryan, one of those 5 guys is probably gonna get hurt by the time that Eduardo Rodriguez is back, and so he'll just take their spot. But if everybody is still healthy, Ryan Nelson likely goes back to AAA to stay stretched out and ready to step into the rotation when somebody does get hurt. Because it's not if somebody gets hurt, it's when somebody gets hurt.
Well, pitchers break.
Yep, that's exactly right. So
that's what our title's going to be.
Pitchers break. Yeah. So that's kind of it for our show here today.
Yep.
Please like, comment, subscribe. You've watched it. If you're still watching, you're still listening. You get some sort of. I hope obviously we're entertaining you some way, whether it's cringe entertainment or just genuine entertainment. We'll take it either way, and please pass us along to somebody else, aka channel your inner kindergartner, and
share.
That's right. So with that, I'm Dad. This is
Phoenix, or if you want to call it Son.
That's right.
But I'm not really your son.
we are nerding on the Dbacks.
Nerding on the Dbacks.
That's right, and we'll catch you on the next one.
See, if you're an OG, you'll know the intro. Nerding on the
Dbacks. Woo! Bye.